everybody, my name is Ariel Bach.
And my name is Alice Bach.
From Bach Bros Studio. And today, we're here at the Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. to meet with Ambassador Barbara Bodin to learn more about diplomacy.
We're so excited. Are you ready?
Let's go!
Hello, Professor Bodin. Thank you for making the time to meet with us today.
It's my pleasure.
If a young student like us asks you, what is diplomacy really?
What is diplomacy really?
Yeah. How would you explain it in the simplest way possible? And what is the most common misunderstanding about what diplomacy actually involves?
What diplomacy is, how do you manage the relationships between states and people? It's an unfortunate part of human nature that we tend to have arguments and disputes and sometimes fights. And the role of the diplomat is to try to resolve the argument before it becomes a dispute. And if it gets serious, to try to resolve the basic issues. And if somebody's having a fight, you try to stop it. That's kind of the negative side of diplomacy, is to stop bad things from happening. And then the other side is to create good relations between not just governments, but people.
We often hear about negotiations, but what does a real negotiation look like in diplomacy? And how do diplomats find common ground when countries have very different interests or even distrust each other?
If they didn't have differences and they didn't distrust each other, there wouldn't be a need for a diplomat. We go in when everything else has failed. We actually try to get in before it fails. What the diplomat tries to do to be effective is that, first of all, you need to understand the other person. You need to understand what motivates them. What are their fears? What is their history? What are their aspirations? It doesn't mean that you agree with it, but you have to understand who they are, very first and foremost. And then you try to make connections and see if there is a way that you can both have what you want. We do a lot of collaboration and a lot of compromise, and it's not to say your interests are not important or your views are bad or you're a bad person. Because if you say that, people just kind of go like that, right? What you try to do is understand, okay, why are you saying this? Why are you doing this? And is there a way that we can come up with something that we're both pleased with? And often when you really talk to somebody, you start to understand them better and they stop being as difficult or evil or bad. They just become people that you might disagree with, but you can still work with.
I imagine that diplomats sometimes have to deal with situations where they have to represent for their country's interests, even when they personally don't agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
So have you ever faced such a situation before? And if you have, how did you deal with it?
It's probably impossible for any diplomat to agree with every single policy of their government. It just doesn't work that way. Even if it's the best president you've ever seen, they're still going to do something you don't agree with. And sometimes you will be asked to present a policy or a program or a project or a resolution that you don't fully agree with. And there's a couple of different elements to that. First, your job is to support the government. I mean, an American diplomat takes an oath to the Constitution. We pledge with our right hand to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. That's the first line. Our oath is to the Constitution. So our oath is to the people. And the people are represented in our system by elected people. That's the interest. The interests of most countries, though, are basically the same. Everybody wants peace, stability, security. Everybody wants economic prosperity. Sometimes I did have to go in and advocate for something I didn't fully agree with, but that was the policy of my government, and that's who I work for. The government that I'm working with, the people I'm working with in the foreign countries, they want to understand what my government is doing, not what Barbara Bodin thinks. If you're a good diplomat, you will also go back to your bosses and go, you know, this policy you have, or this program you have, or this approach you've got, it's not working. Your goal is this, but the way you're trying to get to it is not going to work. And so if you're smart, what you do is, your goal is this. What I suggest is that you go this way. So you don't say, I don't fully agree with the big principle, but I'm going to come up with a better way to get there that I think is more effective for us. So you have to problem solve. And that's a lot of what diplomats do, is problem solve. There are times, there are places where a policy may be so counter to your principles, your ideas, that you cannot do it. And at that point, what you have to do is the honorable thing and resign, because you cannot represent. That happens very rarely. I would say that most diplomats I know, if they don't really like it, they're always trying to find this or another way. There's an alternative to everything, and you try to do it that way. The other thing that sometimes happens, and I do tell my students, for any issue, there's more than one answer, and there's more than one way to do it. Your leadership may decide on his approach rather than my approach. Sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes the other guy actually has a better idea. And so a little humility that you know a lot, but you don't know everything. And so sometimes being open to alternative ways of doing something, little humility goes a long way too.
So how does diplomacy matter to regular people? I mean, why should regular people who don't necessarily follow international news even care about diplomacy? And how can good diplomacy affect the things in our daily lives?
Diplomacy affects everything in your daily life. First of all, we're trying to keep you safe. We're trying to stop wars. We're trying to stop bad people from doing bad things. We want to make it safe so that if you're traveling someplace, you're safe. So it's not just being safe here, but that the world is a safe enough place that you can travel, you can do business. By helping create the security, you're benefiting from diplomacy every single day. Our ability to trade. We don't make everything. No country makes everything. So you have to trade. And then we also defend our values. But, we're kind of working at where security, economics, and values come together. And that's what diplomacy is doing for you every single solitary day.
So when we read the news, the world seems more connected and at the same time much more divided than ever. So do you see any changes in how diplomacy is practiced today compared to when you were practicing it as an ambassador?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. And I don't like that as an opening. When people say, that's a very good question, it's just like, it's a crutch. Drives me crazy. But that one actually is a very good question. The world is far more connected than it used to be. I can pick up this phone and contact anybody. I can see what's going on anywhere in the world. And that, I think that's great. It does also seem far more chaotic and violent than it used to. I think some of that is just because of media. 50 years ago, if there was fighting in Central Africa, it might be this much of a news article on page 8 of the newspaper. You wouldn't even know it was happening. Now, I can Google DRC, Rwanda, and I can learn everything I can about that war. And I think some of that sense that the world is just killing itself is we know about it. And we know about it instantly, and we know about it all the time. That globalization has made an immediacy of news that we never had before.
So for our viewers, especially the younger ones like us, who might be interested in diplomacy or becoming a diplomat one day, what would you say are some important skills or mindsets that they need to become successful? And what do you say are some of the best ways that they can prepare professionally and academically?
I think one of the most important characteristics of a good diplomat is curiosity. Are you interested in something outside yourself? In people outside your immediate group, cultures, languages? Is that something that is interesting to you? So curiosity. From the curiosity, read and be open to different ideas and open to different ways of the world. I spent part of my life, my career in Southeast Asia. I've spent a lot of it in the Middle East. I've spent some of it in Africa. And every time I go, I'm learning a whole new world, whole new way of looking at things. So that intellectual curiosity is, I think, the most important. And that will lead you to reading and exploring and experimenting with the world out there. That, I think, is the most important. Part of the curiosity also leads you to see people, really see them, really want to know who they are. Not, I want to know what all of the people, I want to know what an Arab is. Well, that doesn't tell me anything. I want to know who you are. I want to know what makes you tick. I want to know what makes you special. And so that kind of curiosity of everything around you, because if you have that curiosity, then you're able to sort of start seeing connections. Then you can start seeing resolutions. You stop seeing the world as other, and you have a much better sense of the world as we. In terms of academics, history, psychology, cultural anthropology, anything that's getting you connected with how people connect, so if you've got that, then you're going to be a good diplomat. And the other thing that you have to do, which I'm obviously not modeling right now, is you need to know how to listen, because you're not going to learn anything if you don't listen.
Well, there you have it. Diplomacy is all about conflict resolution and making sure you keep healthy relationships, whether it's between friends and family or on a much larger scale, such as between two countries in the middle of a dispute. So next time you're in a conflict, try using diplomacy and listening to the other person's argument and trying to work things out instead of increasing the conflict. And for more, please follow and subscribe to Bach Bro Studio. See you next time. Bye.
That was a very good summary of diplomacy.